Okay, I think we're right at 11 o'clock. So how is everybody doing? That's good. That's good. What I was planning on doing, like I told people I was out all last week, sick, so I am here. There, that's a plus right there. So this may be a shorter meeting, but I still want to make sure we meet because we missed in December too. So the first thing I wanted to report back on was we at our November meeting, we had talked about, let's see, let me pull this up. The new link that's on the acquisitions page that is orders by fund. And if you click on that, I was finding that what I was seeing on the orders by fund and what I was seeing on the acquisition homepage were different, like the numbers were different. And I did a little bit of digging around and discovered that the problem was in the orders by fund, they weren't using the actual cost so everything was great when something was on order, because that was, we gave it our best guess of what it was actually going to cost, especially with Ingram and Midwest Tape, there isn't like a standard deduction for everything, so we just kind of, in our acquisitions, just put in a generic 25% off or 30% off. And then when the items actually come in, we get the actual cost to us. So what they were doing in the orders by fund thing was always using that ordered price, whatever that ordered price was, and not using the actual price to calculate the orders by fund stuff. So there's a bug out there. I should have, had I been more prepared, I would have looked that up, but I can do that real quick. So there is, for orders for vendors like Amazon, where we put in the actual price and then it comes in at that price, that all works fine. But if you have vendors where you kind of give it your best guess when you order it, then the orders by fund will not be accurate once. Here it is. Oh, they just didn't. Okay, it's 29612. I can put that in here. 29612 is the bug in Bugzilla that's related to this problem, and it's still in new status. So they haven't started working on that, but that's just an update on what I found out about that problem. So how does anybody have any, that's sort of the old business kind of stuff. Does anybody have any questions or things that they've been running up against that they'd like to talk about?
Well, I have a question on, say you have a title and you ordered it maybe in regular print and you ordered it in large print. And in last year's budget, you received, say, the large print, but it was really the regular print that you got. So you received it on the wrong order.
Yep.
But you closed your budget. So now you're in a new budget year. And when you go to receive the other one, you realize I've done it wrong. So what's the best way to handle that?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of wisdom out there. I can tell you what we have done in similar situations. I'm not going to claim that it's the best way, but it's a way to do this. So what we did was we reopened the old year, the old budget, and then went through all the gymnastics of unreceiving it and then receiving, you know, I mean, it was not easy, you know, whatever, but when, and then close, you know, received the correct item and then close the budget up again and then go back and then you're all set for the new year. That was all I could think of to get it right. I don't know if there's a slicker way to do that, but that was the only thing we could come up with. Has anybody else run into a problem like that?
I think we've done various things. We've done what you said. And I think we also just received the new one in the new year and adjusted the pricing and acted as if it was the thing that was in our hand, and a thing in our hand matched the record, but it kind of, you know, we just kind of said, oh fudge, just,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. That was the other idea rattling
Yeah.
around in my head too. You know, it's like, how accurate do you want your records, you know? And this is like one record out of an entire year, you know, so you just kind of gotta decide.
Is it a problem? Sorry. Is it a problem with your budgeting, your finance department, if the money is slightly different, or is it just you want to have the correct invoice linked to the correct bib?
Nobody's really looking at our, you know, so the city's not coming back and saying, oh, these things don't match. So I'm not really worried about that. I just want to reflect the, you know, the correct amount of money spent. So I know that, you know, that part's correct and what I have remaining is correct. So we just kind of, you know, adjusted the prices, even though those prices didn't really go, I guess, with the thing we had in hand. And it was like Rhonda said, you know, it was like one thing. So we didn't really want to go to town on just, you know, we just like, what's the quick, easiest way?
Yeah, because one of the things you could have considered was transferring the order to a different biblio, so that just afterwards, if you're searching for a biblio and you click on the acquisitions tab, at least you're linking to the correct order. Now, it might mean that the money came out of a different budget year, but if that doesn't matter, then at least the item will be on the correct biblio and the price will be related to that. So if you were ever charging, you know, a replacement cost for somebody who lost it, you'd have it that way. Now, the only thing then I could suggest is you just put a note in there in case the auditor ever came back and said, this money is a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think we did put, you know, just a quick explanatory note of like received wrong item, cost should have been, or I don't know, something like that. But yeah, transferring it. Okay.
Yeah, and that's good. And it's always like, I always say to all our users, remember, Koha isn't your accounting system. It's a fund tracking system. And often things are slightly different anyway, because you order it at one price and it comes in at a different price.
Mhm.
So, but it can be awkward if you have different budgets for your large print as opposed to your normal print, or, but that being able to move to transfer an order from one biblio to another, that's a handy feature just to remember if you make a mistake.
Thanks.
Just a suggestion.
So I have an intern that I need to talk with real quick. So I'm gonna just scoot out for a minute, but if you guys can just talk amongst yourself, I hopefully will be back in like 15 minutes. But I got, this is all called Everything Happens When the First Day You're Back After Being Out. So I will be back.
Well, I have a non-acquisitions pitch, and that is that I am this year's koha-US president. And if you have not yet joined koha-US, you should do that. It's a great organization. As you all know, you're already here in the special interest group. But be sure and join, invite your friends to join. And let us know anything that you want to see koha-US doing. How can we help you more? What can we do to be relevant to you and your own library? So there's my pitch.
Hey, Barbara, why might someone want to join within the next month or so, especially?
Someone might want to join in the next month or so because koha-US is planning its upcoming conference, and we will be putting out a vote for the site location of where the conference will take place. And if you are a Koha member, you get to vote on that location and have a say in where the conference actually takes place. So that's why you should always join at the beginning of a calendar year.
It looks like Victoria has a question in the chat. Can an item be claimed returned when it has a lost status? I have I have very little acquisitions experience, and we don't use claims returned either, but I'll toss that out to the room. Does anybody know?
I think normally when you mark something lost, you're sort of blaming the patron and you're charging them. So you might want to sort of pretend to check it in so that you could then claim returned. Now, if you haven't charged the lost charge, that probably doesn't matter. But the functionality for claimed returned is all based on the assumption that at the time it's claimed returned, it has been checked out to the borrower, and then you're going to go straight and mark it as claimed returned. So they get no charge.
Okay, thank you. It's just that when it becomes long overdue, it goes into the lost status. And we had a couple of times that the patron says that they return it, but it has been more than 3 months per se. So the item is no longer in checkout, it's in the lost status.
Yeah, and that's, you can change that if you want to, and obviously change, at which stage it gets marked as lost. But if you're happy with the settings that you have, except for these people who claim it returned, I would test it on, if you have a record yourself, you know, check something out to yourself, mark it as lost, and then go and change it to claimed return, just so you can see how it looks and that you're happy with that,
Okay,
because then presumably once it's claimed returned, you have some sort of a process you go through to search the shelves to see if you can locate it in the library.
okay, yeah, I tried actually doing that, and from what I can see is, like I said, if it's still checked out, just in the checkout, not long overdue yet, it allows me to, it has the claim return button. But once it becomes long overdue, that disappears. So yeah, I was
So
just
that's
wondering
where you
if there
might
was
need,
a way to go around it.
well, I think you might have to check it, pretend you're checking it in,
Uh-huh,
and then check it back out again to the same borrower, and
okay,
then mark it claimed returned.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, and maybe just have a note on it, so that you understand the dates are different, to say, you know, that it really was originally checked out on a
Got it.
particular date.
Yeah, put in the note would definitely help. All righty. Thank you.
Well, I do have a question, I guess, for the acquisitions group. So this came up in this week, I guess. So the only thing that we use acquisitions for really is purchase suggestions, and we are a consortium. So we were excited with this new feature where it kind of breaks out how many purchase suggestions are pending by branch. So I can show my screen because that'll probably make more sense. So before it just gave you suggestions pending for the whole consortium here. Now it breaks out by library. So Iowa Public has 7, all libraries have 70, and I can click on either one to get to the pending suggestion area. But that disappears on libraries that don't have any, and that's thrown off some of my libraries, because even though they don't have any pending, they still use that link to get to the suggestions area to manage the ones that they're working on. So I know that there's a menu item for suggestions here now, and that's kind of where I've been directing people, but I'm wondering if it should totally disappear, if there's stuff that still needs worked. I'm trying to decide if I just want to add that back with jQuery or something, or if that's like an actual, is it a feature not bug or bug not feature? I guess that's the question I wanted to toss out there. I think it's an improved view for sure when there are pending suggestions, but it has caused some confusion when there aren't.
Well, we're a single library, so we don't run into that, but it does seem like you ought to be able to quickly get to the suggestions, that it shouldn't just all of a sudden, you know, be gone if your library doesn't have any.
Yeah, and I was looking through the bug ticket a little bit where they introduced that feature, and it doesn't sound like that scenario was tested in the plan, so I don't know that it was intended or not to completely kill the link when there aren't any pending suggestions. So I guess I could put a bug out there and just see what other people think.
Yeah, because I think if it was back in, it would say pending suggestion 0.
Mhm.
And then would people expect that they would click on that link to find things?
Right. That's kind of why I'm kind of teetering on. I guess it's kind of a good thing, and I could just re-add a link back to manage suggestions just for myself.
But I see what you mean, because otherwise people might forget about the suggestions that have a different status.
And for years, that's been where they click to get there. So like now that it's gone, it's causing some confusion, which is a training issue.
You know, they appear as well as soon as you click into the button that says acquisitions.
Right. And since we don't really use acquisitions, my people don't associate that. But I could change the label on the acquisitions to purchase suggestions too.
That's what I was going to say. If you just had that label, now you'll need to go in and make sure. I can't picture exactly what else comes up, but I think if you change that label, it might be a nicer solution for you.
Yeah, it goes to the home page, so then you have to click again, but I could redirect it so that it just goes directly to the suggestions page. That's a good idea. Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
I put a link in there to bug 8179. It's one we've looked at in this group before about receiving multiple order lines at once. And we did go through, I don't know, it's been a while. We kind of went through trying to test it as a group. And I got a notification the other day of the latest activity on it. And this was Andrew from Bywater, and just some additional notes on things that don't seem to be working with the test plan. Because the last update was in like May of 21 until Andrew commented on it recently. So I just thought I'd draw attention to the latest thing on that particular one.
Question, Barbara. So what do we need to do then? Just comment on it so it will go to the next stage, or because that's something that I was really looking forward to.
I think you can go in there and just say that kind of thing, like, you know, this would be, you know, really great for our library. Would love to see, you know, work continue on
Okay.
this. I think what I've heard from other people is that the more you make comments on
Mhm.
bugs about, you know, this would work for us,
Mhm.
or this would seriously negatively impact our workflow, you know, depending on what it is, all of that is good information for the developers to take into account, you know, with how popular something is, how detrimental something might be. That's what I feel I've gained in learning about being bold enough to go into Bugzilla and actually comment on something.
Okay. I will make sure to leave a comment. Thank you.
Hi, I'll be brave and ask a question. Okay, so I'm wondering if anyone else keeps up with gift or memorial information in Koha, either for the staff member to know which book plate goes to which book when it comes in, or for patrons later on to say, hey, I'd like to check out the book that was ordered in memory of my grandmother, that kind of thing. We wanted to add the information. We wanted to have the selectors put the information in a non-public note when they ordered it. But then when the item records come in later, that gets replaced. So I'm wondering if anyone has a good workflow for that, or if you just don't bother keeping up with that in Koha.
We don't really keep up with it. I do go, like, we'll get hardcover copies of, like old Patterson book, and we'll replace our really awful one with, one that came through donations, and we just add a donation note in the non-public note on the item record. But we're not doing anything as far as, coordinating book plate memorials and that kind of thing. We don't get an awful lot of those either, so.
I'm sorry, did you say you considered putting the details in the public note? Because that can display on the OPAC.
Yes, I think we have tried that out, but it's still something that we can't really put in when it's ordered, because then that information gets replaced when the item record comes in.
Do you create the item records when you're ordering or when you're receiving?
We get them from the vendor.
And I wonder, could you put it on the vendor note and ask them to send it back in when they're creating the item? Because you're using EDI then, are you?
Yes.
Yes, so.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, now there is a little bit of discussion, so you'll need to talk to them, because there isn't an official rule for exchange of information. When you send it out as vendor, it goes in the FTX or something. I can't remember the detail of it, but it's worth discussing that with them.
Yay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Who else has questions? Can we extend it? Doesn't look like Rhonda's back yet. I see just a blurry picture of her chair. Are there other bugs you guys want to talk about? Issues? I see Barbara on mic, so I will remic.
I'm looking in Bugzilla to see if there's anything interesting. It seems like it'd be kind of rotten for us all to be gone by the time Rhonda gets back.
Rotten, but also kind of funny if she comes back to an empty Zoom room that's just recording.
I have a question. Has anybody been surprised with, or actually positive surprise about being able to close more than one invoice at a time? We now have two separate tabs that open and the close one, and you can close multiple ones, but you still have to check individual ones. And then say close selected invoices.
Morning.
It sounds like a good feature. It's something that we don't use, but it sounds exciting.
Oh, that's right. You don't use acquisitions, right? That's right.
Yeah.
No, it is. I'm very excited because it's actually something that we paid for. We funded it out to the United States. So, and I know there was another couple of people that were excited about it. So I was just wondering how that was working out for everybody.
I guess that could be a good question. Is anybody else working on acquisitions related developments? Have you funded anything, or are you thinking about funding anything? Are there things you want to collaborate on, other people in the group? I can say that we're not, because we don't use acquisitions. um, there have been some purchase suggestion related things that we've been in on, but I don't think we have any outstanding on that end of things.
I was going to bring attention to bug 29570, and it is hard to explain from the title, but the title is unable to sort the pending orders table on parcel PL by summary column. And this happened after the 2105 upgrade. So if you are in a pending, I think it's when you're paying invoices. So you're searching for titles that are on your invoice that you're going to pay. There's a description column that contains I guess it's the title, the author, and probably the ISBN, I'm not sure. And we used to be able to sort by that column, and you can't do that anymore. If you look at the code, it's now an unsortable column. And there's some related bug that also had to be fixed along with this. And I guess this one is still being worked on. And I don't do the day-to-day acquisition stuff, but immediately after we upgraded, my assistant came to me and said, I can't sort this alpha order by title anymore. That's a problem for me. So that's what that one is.
All right, what else do we have? Everything in acquisitions works perfectly for everyone. Margaret says yes, so it must be true.
Well, Margaret, do you have a sense of the kinds of tickets that come in to Bywater, of the problems people have, unique problems, or anything that would be interesting to us as a group?
Ooh, what would be interesting? Often enough, what I'm seeing in acquisitions related support tickets, when it isn't a matter of how does this feature work and a technical explanation, it's we run into some data issues of maybe bibs got deleted, but the order was persisting, and now Koha doesn't want to let you get rid of this item in the basket, or kind of things like that, where something's just gone a little bit off, and now the order, the basket, the invoice, the receiving is not quite right. So we'll fix those up. I wouldn't say that's tied to particular bugs, just kind of what happens in production environments. Let's see. EDI. EDI is always the big one. The setup and troubleshooting if orders, receivings, the EDI notices aren't working quite right. I'll see those tickets, not as infrequently as I'd like, and those take a little bit of digging into with our education and systems team to troubleshoot those down. I think that accounts for most of the acquisitions related tickets I see, or at least, the top 5 hits. So always start early on EDI and be prepared for a journey.
And
maybe technical services should check with cataloging before there's any big batch deletes of bibliographic records.
So like we haven't set up EDI yet. I know we've talked about it in this SIG. And I can't remember. So like, once you want to do that, do you start with Bywater first and say, I'm thinking about starting the EDI process? Or do you get with your vendor first and say, I think I'm wanting to do this. What do I need from my ILS support vendor? What's the first step?
I'd say the first step is contact both at the same time and CC us along with the vendor. Some vendors I feel like we work with them very closely, first name basis. Other vendors, maybe it's down to their support structure. They can take a real long time to get correspondence back and forth or to make changes on the mapping, the user interface over at the vendor side compared to Koha. There's a different EDI plugin for all the major US vendors. And I'd love for Daphne to jump in here and say how much easier it is in Europe, because here it's a lot easier in Europe. But we'll get the plugin specific to the vendor you're working with installed on Koha. We'll go through a testing period where there's that back and forth of, okay, let's adjust this mark field order, let's adjust this mapping profile, let's make sure that the import records are coming in cleanly. And that's where, having a test site's nice. Doing all of those steps in a non-production environment gives you that just added level of confidence that you can do some really weird things and try all the permutations and not inadvertently screw up your accounting and acquisitions. Even if you should probably have a bookkeeping software outside of it, it's still nice when the two things line up. But start early or as early as you can, and get the Bywater support team talking with your vendor at the same time. So if you want to get this set up in 2 months, start today. If you want to get it set up in 1 month, start today and stay on top of all the communications and have a clear vision in mind of what you want to get working on. And yeah, it's a little bit, sometimes it works a little bit easier than others, and we try to make it as smooth and give you everything we can, from the plugin to configuration, suggestions, and that troubleshooting as soon as we can. But since there's 3 parties and all those moving pieces, just the earlier you can start on it, the better. And patience and explaining exactly what you want along the way. That's all I can really recommend for having a good EDI implementation.
I don't know if anybody's using the Gobi API, because they had a new version to go with release 2011. And they now have a like a dummy patron record that's required And if you don't have it set up and specified in the configuration file, it doesn't work. But it was never mandatory before, so they don't tell you. So it took us ages to work out what the problem was.
And I guess with EDI, if you're able to do it on a test server, then you don't really have to worry about timing regarding fiscal years or anything like that on your production server. So that's nice to know that you can do it on the test side.
I'd say if you can and can get that squared away with the vendor you're working with, saying we have test server, we have our production server, we'd like to be able to test new things out on the test server and, you know, not get charged for fake test books. Do that if you can. And the added bonus to that is whenever Koha does get upgraded, 2105 to 2011 and so on, if you can, you know, without adding to costs and things, maintain a test connection for EDI. If there are changes and enhancements to Koha's EDI, you can check them out on your test server, make sure they're working as you expect before you upgrade your production server. And I know that will save some hair pulling come upgrades.
What else? Anything else? Should we abandon the room while Rhonda's away?
Don't you have a party piece, Jason, where you can sing or dance or tell a joke?
I really should prepare one, but no, I don't have anything like that. Let's see. I guess we could talk about the koha-US website a little bit. The education committee has been in discussions about kind of refreshing it a little bit. So if there's anything in regards to the acquisitions area you'd like to see, that would be good input to give us. I think what we're thinking is that we might rearrange the learn from page a little bit so that it's easier to navigate, add more navigation to the top menu so it's easier to get where you're going. We're working on organizing conference content. We'd also talked about maybe taking tidbits from meetings like this and creating short little videos where somebody showed something that we could then post up on the acquisitions page of our website. So if you have ideas for things you'd like to see, or if you want to help generate resources, that's always good too. If you're an expert in some area of acquisitions, like you want to write down all your knowledge about EDI or something, and then put that into like a print reference guide, we would be happy to host that on our website so that everyone can access it. I'm rambling, but yeah, we're happy to accept any resources that you guys want to put out there to help us kind of freshen up the website and help us be a good resource for other libraries interested in acquisitions that may not be using it or could be using it better, that sort of thing. Also, if this group wants to collaborate on something, you guys want to like put together some sort of workshop, we're happy to entertain that, host it, stream it to YouTube. If there's a topic that you think would be good in a sort of webinar format, that would be great. Great addition to our collection of resources.
And the link I put in is basically I did a search in Bugzilla just for the acquisitions module for new bugs, basically ones that haven't, gone to completion. And, you might find something in there you'd like to comment on and say, just like we talked before, just go in there and say, this would really help my library out, or, if it's something that caused problems. And you can also vote on a bug when you go into it. There is a somewhere. Yeah, there's a little vote link on the page, and so you can vote on it and say how important it is to you, and you can also add yourself as a CC to the list so that you get bug updates. And that, I think that kind of also gives an indication of how many people are kind of interested in that particular functionality. So there's multiple different ways you can sort of let your voice be heard regarding bugs.
Yeah, anytime that you copy yourself on a bug, it sends an email to everybody else that's copied on the bug, including the person working on it. So that's an instant notification to them that more interested has been added. And that's like the absolute easiest thing you can do in Bugzilla is subscribe, because all you have to do is pull up the ticket. And if you're logged in, if you hit save, it CCs you to the bug. So even if you don't want to make a comment or vote, CCing yourself is very easy. And then it also kind of collects that stuff in your own Bugzilla account. So when you log in on the homepage, you can see what you're CC'd to and easily track what you're following. So I would second encouraging the using Bugzilla more, because that gets things done.
Well, do we think we've exhausted everything we can possibly talk about? By this point, she won't be surprised that we're not here if she ends up coming back.
Yeah, I'd say so, unless anybody else has any parting questions or comments, wisdom you'd like to share with the group. We can probably call this one a wrap. Let's see. The next acquisitions meeting is scheduled for February 15th, day after Valentine's Day. So bring some chocolate to snack on or something. And if you have questions in the meantime, of course, we have a listserv for communication, or you can email Rhonda and she can add it to the agenda for next month. So there's nothing else. We will call this one. We'll put a pin in it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing, coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.